And welcome everybody to the HOU.SEC Cast, the HOU.SEC.CON podcast, episode number 32. I am joined here by the illustrious and very well head of hair type person, Sam Van Ryder, whatever that term is, since I don't
Thanks.
have
I don't
any.
know illustrious would apply, but the head of hair, yeah. Hey, I do spend a lot on haircuts, right? So
that is the difference between us. You spend money on haircuts. I do not. Anyway, nobody wants to hear about all that. Again, episode 32. Thanks for everybody joining. We have, again, as I always say, a very special guest, Len Noe. Len is a friend to HOU.SEC.CON. Len is a friend to Sam and myself and Lauren and everybody that's involved in HOU.SEC.CON. He's spoken multiple times. He's keynoted. He has been on podcasts with us. He's just a great dude. Transhuman. That is a cool term. And he's going to be talking about his book. He's going to be talking about his podcast and all the things. So I'm excited to have him on.
Yeah, and you might inadvertently have this weird, strange feeling of being hungry for chicken at the end of it.
You may be.
Maybe.
Keep a lookout for that. I spoiler alert. All right. Well, let's go join him, Sam.
All right, let's go.
Hey, Sam. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a good week, very productive week, a lot of stuff, a lot of work for HOU.SEC.CON stuff, all kinds of stuff we've been doing this week. But yeah, been very productive. We've got on a good friend of HOU.SEC.CON, a good friend of ours, somebody I've worked with in various capacities over probably like the last 4 years, Len, and podcasts and day-to-day stuff with our partner customer, our companies, our day jobs, being partners and everything else. Len Noe is on here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Michael. It's great to see you, Sam. I haven't seen you guys in a couple of months. The time between, don't get me wrong. We can pick up wherever we left off, but it's kind of a blur looking back.
You got a lot going on.
It was yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot going on, and we are absolutely going to talk about that. For you, those of you who don't know Len, and I don't think that's very many people left, Len has been traveling all over the world doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So Len is day job, what we just talked about, CyberArk technical evangelist, your white hat hacker. I think
we'll go dirty white. Dirty
white.
Yeah.
Kind of the
dingy
gray.
white.
Kind of the you got a little
cream
bit of
color, like off-white. Yeah.
Let's go with taupe.
Taupe. Okay, we'll go with taupe. Basically, you hadn't been able to get some of the stains off there, but
yeah.
But the most famous title I think that everybody knows you as transhuman. We're going to talk about that, but it has a lot to do with the book you've got and everything else. So we're going to dig all into that. But seriously, really appreciate it. I think this is the third podcast I've been on with you in various forms, old stuff we did with the old job and everything else. So really excited to have you on here again, man.
I'm happy to be here, man. It's always good to talk to friends.
Yep. Same here. All right. Well, per usual, we are going to jump into the HOU.SEC.CON segment and talk about that. So here we go. What are the updates, Sam, for HOU.SEC.CON? I know there's some big stuff coming there.
Yeah, so HOU.SEC.CON, which takes place on April 17th at the Norris Conference Center. That's over in City Center, formerly known as Memorial City area. If you're from the Houston area, you remember that. So Beltway 8 and I-10. And that's our industrial conference. So that's where we're focused on OT environments and ICS, et cetera. And we have the call for presenters out right now. So all of January, it's going to be open all the way through the end. So if you have, any sort of experience or knowledge, things that you want to share, experiences, bring them, submit them. Let's, and if you're a first time talker, that's okay too. So we just love to see more content submitted so that we can make this as great a conference as we can.
Yep. So we've got that and tickets, right?
Tickets are on sale, and they are they're up there right now, along with the other tickets for which one?
HOU.SEC.CON.
Yeah.
So our executive level conference, and we always say HOU.SEC.CON. you don't have to be a CISO or a VP of security to go. We do like decision makers, that kind of stuff, because it is going to be higher level conversations that are happening. They're going to be talking risky stuff and compliancy stuff, all the really fun topics, but all the stuff that they have to talk about at that level. So that's on April 22nd. So the week after HOU.SEC.CON, that's at the Marriott Marquis back in our old stomping grounds for HOU.SEC.CON back in the day. So those are on sale now. We're not doing a call for papers for that. We're curating that agenda more. But still, if you're of that ilk, that executive level ilk, that decision maker ilk that wants to talk about those risky and compliancy and processy policy things, get signed up for that. And then we've got the user group coming up. So our first one of 2025. And who's coming to speak for that?
That would be one of our locals, Dustin Socks, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
he'll be there I'm sorry?
He's a doctor now.
He's a doctor now. That's right.
Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, that's I guess we've known him too long, right? So all these
Yeah.
folks popping up around us with new titles. So yeah, Dr. Socks will be here presenting for us.
Yep, that's on January 30th. For those of you who used to go and didn't for a while, if you did, we're at the Neutrality Data Center downtown now, not at the Trace 3 building anymore. And again, if you come out there and you join us, you get the chance to go on a tour of the data center, Neutrality Data Center. It's a pretty cool tour. So come out for that. All right, now we're going to jump into the news. So there was a pretty cool article that came out. So for anybody on here of the more technical shape and size when it comes to what we do in cyber world, if you're familiar with the term fuzzing, really big deal to be able to find out. You just throw a bunch of mess of crap at an application software and try to figure out if it does anything weird. There's all kinds of different forms of it. Some people even call the guy who used to take the new iPhone release every time, and he would like do all kinds of stuff to get it to pop up the camera and all this stuff. But generally, fuzzing, as we see it, is something where you're picking a piece of software somewhere, finding places in it that might be susceptible to fuzzing, and you just slam it with all kinds of inputs, make it do all kinds of weird stuff, see what you can get out of it. So Google has been doing this a while. Everybody's got all these different fuzzing tools that people use. What is cool about this new one and this article that came out, what I just was like really, really cool about it, is they found out something like 26 new vulnerabilities in different open source projects. And the big one that they found one in is the OpenSSL library, which is like props up how much of the world it's just huge. But what's cool about, or why they are able to find more issues and more vulnerabilities using fuzzing is because now they've got an LLM that they're utilizing, and it's not just doing the fuzzing. What a key point, and when you're doing fuzzing, is finding the targets to fuzz within the libraries themselves. That's not an easy thing to do. You're looking for a specific thing that would be susceptible potentially to fuzzing and to cause it to do some weird stuff. Well, you've got all of these different projects that have been being fuzzed over the years, and something especially like OpenSSL that has been around forever, and they found a new one in it because they use the LLM to find the targets that then they can start fuzzing. I really think everybody knows that AI is going to do crazy stuff, but the use of being able to use an LLM to find these targets to make this much more efficient and to get rid of a lot of the massive manual effort to even just find targets for fuzzing I think is huge. I'm really excited about this development.
Yeah, but is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Right? I mean, it depends on which direction you take that.
I think this is a good thing specifically, but yes.
See, I think we need to look at this from the bigger picture, like I think Sam was alluding to. This has kind of really just kind of validated one of my theories, and this is kind of on topic but off, but just as a side thought as we go with this, we're looking at this from we can use this to try and find these types of vulnerabilities. What about the nation states that will develop this as an offensive tool? And that to me is a little bit more scary. And if we take that and just extrapolate it out one level, and this is something as we're winding down 2024, I've been throwing out to all of the professionals. So, not to derail your original point, but as we see these kinds of technologies being utilized in this way, does this force us to start to have to reconsider what is an APT? Because up until this point, it's always been a collective or a nation state group. My question is now that we validated the fact that, between the fuzzing capabilities and the vulnerability that Google's other AI found, we now know that these can be weaponized. And
Yep.
what happens if we have let's just throw Iran or China out there as an example. If they're going to develop these from a completely different end objective, it's not so much as that, to your point, these are good, but are they going to be good enough fast enough?
So let's be clear. They're already developing these. They've been developing them. There's nobody that's naive enough, hopefully, to say, or at least not. We are too. We're all doing it, and in their eyes, we're the bad guys, right? But um, I how I see this, and I'm not trying to discount the danger in any of this. I just see this as a matter of scale. So all of this stuff, the fuzzing, trying to find vulnerabilities, all of these things have been happening for years and years and years and years and years. They just haven't had an LLM to do it. So we've put exactly. We've put resources behind doing it. They've put resources behind doing it. Now we've got LLMs to turn it up. From my perspective, we've got to use, and this is why I was on record when there was the whole thing that came out with, I think it was Elon Musk and several other people were like, we need to stop the development of the AI stuff until it's like, no. You don't stop. You keep doing it to keep up with the bad guys who are doing it so you can figure out ways of countering them because they're not going to stop. They're not going to sign on to your code of ethics. It's just not going to happen. So once the genie's out of the bottle per se, or once the what's the box? My brain just locked on me. Pandora's box. Yeah. Once fire has been given to humanity, you don't try to stop
You
it. 'Cause
can't
the
take
other,
it. The other
yeah,
guys aren't going to follow your same ideologies,
yeah.
and that's been my point as well. So I'm glad I hear it coming out of somebody else's mouth.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's use it for good, and let's use it for patching, right? Let's develop the
Well,
LLM that's going to
read the
keep all this
article.
stuff from being exposed, right?
Read the article because their LLM also, whether it's totally good code or not. I mean, when it finds this, it also suggests how to patch it and how to fix it. It gives you some code to go back and do it. These are open source libraries, so anybody can, Google can go and contribute to the project and immediately fix that, and say, okay, we've got a new version. However, it's a little more complicated than that with open source, but it's still, they can contribute to it and fix that, and then get a newer a better version. And that's anybody who's done AppSec for any amount of time knows that nobody's building code from the ground up. Everybody's using open source libraries, or they're reusing code from some other project or whatever. And this has got to, when you do something like this and you go find it and then you can offer up the fix for it, I think it's a fantastic idea. So
Yes, but I guess my point on that is we have enough of the vulnerability research to begin with, and we can't keep up with what's there already. So if we can go the step further and make it easier for folks to keep on top of the patch process, right, as well. And I'm sure there's somebody out there working on it, right? It's in some cases, and it's not feasible everywhere either. I mean, in my world for ICS, hell no, right? But on a data center or something like that, it might be a different situation.
I think it's just going to be a matter of who can scale quicker at this point.
Yep. And I think the United States has a whole lot of resources. Google absolutely has a whole lot of resources, probably more than many nations, not more than China or maybe more than North Korea. I don't know.
Well, what do we really know?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Well, anyway, yes, all kinds of issues with it. All kinds of good stuff can come out of it. All kinds of bad stuff can come out of it.
Well, it's a tool.
Yep.
Any tool can be misused. We just got to make sure that we're keeping our eyes on the prize and not let it, as you said, if we're given fire, we need to make sure that we don't burn ourselves on the way out.
We're going to burn ourselves several times.
I know. But it's nice to talk like we were smart enough.
We can.
Well, at least we can say it wasn't our fault, right? So
True.
we'll go on record.
Hey, we're talking about it. We're part of the solution here.
I just read the article, man. I don't know what y'all are doing.
Yeah, exactly. All we did is read.
All right. Well, we are going to take a break, everybody. On the other side of this break, we're going to get into everything Len Noe. We're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about your podcast. We're going to talk about your haircut. We're going to talk about all of it. Yeah, this looks so good, man. So good.
When are you catching up, Sam?
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything.
I wish I had.
I love you guys. It's all good.
All right. We'll see everybody on the other side of the break. All right. We are back with Len. So, Len, everybody who watches this, and I know you have watched every single episode up into this.
100%,
100% sure of that. Just like
absolutely.
I've watched every single one of your podcasts.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So,
yeah, you're like part of our repetitive 5. I know that.
Yeah, Sam and I joke and go, "Oh, you're the one." But no, seriously, everybody who's watched any of these, they know we get into kind of the background story of why you do what you do, why you got into it, all of that good stuff. We try to open up all your childhood trauma.
Thank God I've been in therapy for years.
But seriously, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about your book and your podcast. But we really want to know what drives Len, what got you into this, and bring up the transhuman part of it too. If people who don't know you, you've got all the implants and stuff. So
well, see, that's the kind of you kind of rolled it all up into one nice big bundle, because the book is actually me telling of my story of how the hell I got here. So
just read the first chapter for us on air. Oh, look at you, prepared, ready to go.
See,
and we did a book signing. We did a book signing at HOU.SEC.CON this last year. So if you weren't there, you missed out. You could have met Len. You could have gotten a book. That would have been awesome.
And for the record, I've got a couple of these set aside for both of you guys, just because of the love. I've even turned myself into a laptop sticker now. So honestly, it was really weird to try and write this book, because this book is actually, like I said, it's kind of a roadmap of how I not only became a transhuman, how I became a taupe hat hacker as opposed to a black hat. It all started as a kid, and we're going to go, I know Michael, you and Sam and I were mildly over the age of 30. So for those of you who, if you don't know the stuff we're talking about, you just weren't paying attention. We're still young. But I was one of those kids when we were growing up, I was just always fascinated, like, why does this work? How does this thing function? I would tear stuff apart, put it back together, and make it work. Most of the time, more often than not, it didn't work when I was done. But it was like I kind of started figuring out like what resistors and cogs and gears were. My father was an auto mechanic, so I was getting the mechanical side from him, and he was one of those, and I love him for it because it made me who I am in a lot of ways. He was that guy who always had to have the latest and greatest toys. So we're going to go in the way back here. There was one of the original set-top computer systems was called the Magnavox Odyssey 2. And I would say it's a lot like an Atari, but for most of our listeners, you won't know what that is either. So,
Nah, we got a lot of old folks on here too, man.
yeah, but the youngsters are where them youngins are going to be the ones taking over for us soon, Micah. But no, this was before the days of the internet. Hell, it was before the days of cable. So essentially, it was a kind of like a game console, but it had a membrane style keyboard on it. And back in those days, you actually had to go to a store to buy games. I know this is completely foreign to probably quite a bit of the population out there, but yeah, you couldn't automatically just go, "Ooh, I like that game. All right, let's play the game." It didn't work that way. You had to literally get up, get in a car, drive somewhere, and there was a whole store dedicated, kind of like GameStop, but much, much more intense, because we're talking like 8-bit graphics, and it was terrible, but it was all we had, and we thought it was the cat's meow. But my dad every month would go out and buy different game cartridges, and he showed up with one, and it was called Intro to Computers. And it was one of those things where it didn't have pictures of race cars or sports figures, and the manual was like that thick, and I'm like, this, I ain't doing this shit. and it didn't get touched. I didn't touch it, my brothers didn't touch it, and I have no idea why or how it came to be. But I was walking in to play one of my, I don't know, baseball game, football, whatever the hell it was. Mm-hmm. And the manual had flopped open, and I was reaching down to pick it up, and you can't help but read what's on the page, and it says, this cartridge may not teach you how to program a rocket ship to Mars, but it can explain the concepts behind it. And it went, wait a minute, I don't like schoolwork, but the idea of plotting a ship to Mars sounds pretty freaking interesting. So that was honestly my first introduction to computers. I wrote some of my first basic programs, at the time, but I learned about registers. I learned how things basically worked. And from there, it was once again my father's love of being that guy that has the newest stuff. We had a TRS-80, we had a Tandy, I had a 380, or excuse me, a 286, a 386, a 486, a 486 DX2 with the floating math coprocessor, so you could actually have multiple decimal points, floating decimals. Woo! I'm aging the shit out of myself right here. But I've been around for the entire computer revolution. And, my first hack per se was on a token ring network in my high school.
Yeah.
I was actually in the computer aided drafting course. So I was going to be an engineer and drop blueprints and stuff. And we each had our own individual terminal, and they were all connected on a token ring backbone over coax. Oh my God, am I aging myself?
Yeah, those are.
But the teacher, it was basically, he had a folder for us on his system. It was Windows 3.1.1 for work groups. And well, me being the curious person that I was, I discovered Network Explorer.
Network Exploder.
Yep. And not only did the teacher have our individual folders there was also a folder that said tests and exams.
But guess you didn't touch those.
Oh, absolutely,
no.
I did. I was making a great side hustle because this was a 3-year program, and it was everything for all 3 years. I was selling exams for the next 2 years, man. I made a great side.
I think the statute of limitations is.
This is where the taupe comes from, right? So this is
where the taupe. Yeah. Yes, this was where the taupe started. So, but from there, it just never really. I was never really the malicious guy, but I mean, I remember, I was talking to a friend of mine just on some of the old programs that we had back in the day, like Open Orifice and Backtrack, those Loft Crack, and all of those really old tools compared to what we have today. But, for me, it was just a natural progression. And due to my, I know you're going to find this hard to believe because you guys know me now, but I was a very shy person. I had issues.
I could see aspects of that. I mean, it's the fame and fortune is not your natural state. I just say
No.
you're a down to earth dude.
And, you know, it led me to making some really, what I would say at the time, I didn't realize were life altering decisions. But, you know, I grew up on the west side of Detroit and actually gravitated and eventually wound up spending almost 15 years of my life in the motorcycle clubs. You know, I'll say that if anybody wants to know what it's like, it's a lot like Sons of Anarchy in a lot of ways. It really was, with some very, very major differences. Like no biker in their right mind would ever go out and start trying to shoot somebody in broad daylight wearing their club emblem, because there's a law in the United States called RICO, which basically means guilt by association. So yeah, there was some serious sensationalism in there, but you know, a lot of that is probably the closest thing that the public would ever get to it.
Well, I got to ask you what you thought of bike riders then. The bike riders.
I honestly, I know that story very well, and I've been to a lot of the clubhouses that group represents, and I will say they're like any other group. If you go treat them with respect, they'll treat you with respect. It's probably not a good idea to go there, hang out with a bunch of them on their own territory, and realize that you can't handle your liquor. It won't end well.
I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't know
it was. Yeah, it was very well done. I enjoyed it. But
well, obviously a whole lot to unpack there, but I absolutely want to make sure we've got time to build or to talk about your book.
Absolutely.
And also want to plug your podcast with Hutch. So which one you want to talk about first? Because all of us also know Hutch.
Let's get the cybercognition out. So yeah, that's been a really fun adventure. I mean, for those of you who don't know Hutch, that would be Justin Hutchins, my co-host, one of the smartest guys in AI and weaponization of AI you will ever find. Check out his book if you haven't, The Language of Deception. It's an amazing read into the topic. But no, so do I. But no, he was doing it by himself for a while. He invited me on, and it's a really cool kind of a dynamic between the two of us. And you know, because if you know Hutch, he's a serious guy. He's funny, but you know, he's a pretty serious guy. And me, I'm a little bit more of the, we'll just say street. You know, he's former military. I'm former criminal. It's just.
Well, wait. He was Air Force. We got to put the asterisk next to the military.
Oh,
and he knows. I mess with him all the time.
I know, but no, we've been doing some really amazing stuff. We've got the episode coming up is going to be really special. We're actually getting Win Schwartzu, the best-selling author, to come on, and he's going to talk about his new book, The Art of the Meta War. So, and if you haven't checked that one out, I've been reading on it, especially you guys. The fact that he's able to blend the idea of what's going on from a political and social issue back to the influencing that we're getting through the digital media, it's extremely eye-opening. So it's going to be an amazing conversation.
I'm excited about that, man. The Win is one of the legends in the business, absolutely. So I'm really excited about that. I love what you guys are doing. You guys have a great combo between your experience and his experience. I think we've had Hutch on here. He's also, I work with him in the day job. We're co-workers in the day jobs too. So I've worked with him for quite a few years now. So he's a great guy. So I'm excited about what y'all are doing there. We'll include the link in the show notes for everybody as well. So let's get into your book, man. Get into your book. So show
first
it again.
Time author.
Show the cover again. You got to show it off to everybody. First time author, human hacked. So this goes deep into you being your transhuman title, right?
Correct. This goes into the, like I said, the backstory of, how I got into hacking, how I got into the biker clubs, and what it would take somebody in their early life to basically wake up one day and go, today's the day that I'm going to start shoving electronics under my skin. Yeah, that's a good idea. Because, I mean, look, it's a big decision, and there was a lot of thought that, I really had to put into this. A lot of people don't realize that, people like us, we travel a lot for a living. So I didn't know if I was to get these put into my skin, would that restrict my abilities to do my job and travel? What are the laws around this? So there was a lot of research done prior to ever getting, the cut up for the first time and injected.
So in your book launch, the live event you were doing, you were talking about you were talking about one particular implant that like hurt the worst. Somebody asked a question about that. What was that?
That would have been this large one here on the top of my hand. So this thing is about this. So that's it. And I've done this. This is actually a silver dollar. And as you can see, it's just a hair larger than a silver dollar. So that's the size of the implant that's actually inside my body right now.
And what does that one do?
That is a combination RFID and NFC chip. So I can actually set it to be either or based on whatever style attack I'm trying to do. Typically, I use it more in an NFC capability because that one, and the reason it's so large is most of that is an antenna coil. That was the original attack that I wanted to do when I first had the idea to do this. It's, when we take a look at our cell phones, people don't realize that most phones over the last 3 to 5 years have a sensor built into it that will natively read near field communication. And, it just struck me one day when I was sitting at a conference and I was watching some of the salespeople beaming their business cards to people over NFC. And it was like, I wonder if there's an attack vector there. And that was what honestly sent me down the rabbit hole. And I initially vetted out the attacks by using wearables. So I got an NFC ring, and it was like, you guys are in Texas here. You've been to Austin. We have this amazing restaurant called the Oasis right on Lake Travis. And I've been there enough to know, shout out to the Oasis, because yeah, I did this to you guys. I know that they always use a tablet for their hospitality system. And I social engineered the maitre d', under the guise that I'm thinking about buying one. And I took it all the way up to the point where I triggered the NFC, and it was like, do you want to continue? And there came that taupe again. No, I don't. No, I don't. I want to, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not
enough of a hesitation for the taupe to come in. Absolutely.
Yes, the taupe came back. So, I mean, I had proven the fact that it would work. And that's when I got the first implants. And the first 2 implants I got were done at pretty much in the same sitting. And that was a small little bioglass one that's right up here in between my thumb and my forefinger. And the one over here in between my 2 knuckles. And this is actually a cryptobionic security chip. So this actually gave me the ability to do authentication online through one of their own service. So I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. One for chaos, one for security. I like this. I get the best of both worlds. But the issue came in when I tried to test the attack. I could never get this little thing to line up correctly without making it look like I was doing something to the phone. So these 2 chips are actually identical. The only difference is the large one that's in the back of my hand is enough to where I can hold a phone in it and it will read through the depth and the density of my hand. And once I got those, it was just like the door was opened, and it was like, how can I take this and how far can I go with it? And I'm still finding new use cases every day. I mean, I just came up with 3 new ones.
At what point do you remove any of these?
The only reason I could foresee myself removing one is if it ceased to function, or if there's something better that I want to replace it with.
Upgrades.
Yeah. I mean, I've already got the next one completely worked out. I'm working with Amal Garofstra from Dangerous Things, who is the main implant distributor here in the United States. They're based up in Seattle, Washington. And he's agreed to do the bioencapsulation for a Raspberry Pi Zero W2.
Nice. Well, I mean, you've already essentially got a Flipper Zero in your hand.
Well, I got Flipper Zero targets, but see, that's been the problem all this time, Michael. I'm stuck in the current methodologies and technologies. I'm in a passive attacker mode, and I don't like the idea of being passive. So once I can actually get the Raspberry Pi Zero W and it's moved up to my arm, we found a completely different way to power it. And I plan on releasing all of this open source, so I don't mind saying what the plan is. When it comes to adversarial techniques, it's not just about having the implants or whatnot, but it's also understanding how to interplay those with the rest of the world in such a way that you can remain obfuscated. I've told you guys in multiple previous conversations, the reason I haven't done this yet is there hasn't been a way to safely power the devices. So what we came up with is I'm going to actually be soldering 2 contact leads off of the Pi itself that are going to go to 2 magnetic contact points that are actually dermal piercings. And then all of that's going to be encapsulated. So at that point, I now have the ability to power it from the outside.
Yep.
But how do we actually do that in such a way that somebody can't take it off of me? Do you know how many empty used continuous glucose meter shells there are laying around?
Interesting. Yeah. There you go.
You hide the battery in the glucose shell and then use basically a maglock style connection to the dermal piercings. And now you can power from external.
Boom.
That's crazy. And for what it's worth, I was back looking through the presentation at HOU.SEC.CON and let's just say I kind of skipped through parts of it just because I am not one to. I mean, some of that stuff is pretty gory. I do not watch gore thrasher films, but that's what. And not this. I appreciate what you're doing because it's pushing the boundaries, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe somebody will do that. But that being said, I'm also wearing an Aura ring right now, right, and tracking data and things like that, which that part of this makes it super interesting. I've gotten really into the data that I get from that and how do I adjust my day to get to be more healthy and get better sleep, all that kind of stuff. It's made a huge change for me. So in a way what you're doing is moving that just to the next level.
And I want to give you guys a statistic that we've recently been able to get. Between the 2 major distributors, there's potentially anywhere, and we give it a large range because the truth is this is how many implants have been sold compared to we have no ability to verify that they've all made their way inside of a human being. But there's between 65,000 to 100,000 of us wandering the earth right now on multiple continents. So we're here, and I know a couple of actual professional red teamers and pen testers here in the States that are using these in current engagements. So they are real, and there is a threat to this. And the funny part is all you got to do to correct it is just do a little bit of, how shall we say, behavioral modification in terms of allowing persistent access to a vulnerable protocol.
Yeah. Well, so you got all of that going on. You got the book, you got the podcast. There's a little bit of a tease of, whoa, was that a rooster?
It was. I live on a ranch.
We got a rooster on our podcast. Lauren, don't cut that out. That could also be part of it. There's a little bit of a tease of something else you've got going on. I know you can't share all of it, but you're doing another cool project.
We are. Let's just say there may be something that people may be able to watch coming out. We're hoping by the end of Q1 of next year that will take the book to a completely new level.
Very cool.
We'll be eagerly watching and waiting for that.
I really appreciate the chance to come back on here and talk with you guys. It's always a pleasure. And thank you very much for the support. The book has been doing great.
Absolutely, man. I was really excited to have you signing it. We'll do that again. You know, you're always welcome at HOU.SEC.CON anytime. I mean, we don't have one created yet, but you've effectively got a black badge to HOU.SEC.CON. So you are welcome at any time, brother. So
I appreciate it. And
Amen.
You guys have always treated me well. And to be honest, HOU.SEC is I consider that to be my home con.
Awesome, man. That means a lot.
That's great.
That means a whole lot. A whole lot. Well, dude, Sam knows I say it all the time. We could talk about this for hours. But I'm excited to have you on here. There's anybody, you go get the book, go watch all of the stuff that Len puts out himself. He's also on a bunch of other different podcasts. Go check him out, learn everything about this. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is a vector that people need to think about in the future. And it doesn't have to be cyberpunk 2077 style, right? I mean, a lot of this stuff is hidden stuff. It's like, you don't know that it's there. You don't know the threat's there. You're not going to see implants on the side of people's heads and stuff.
We're not Borg yet.
Yeah, exactly. We're not quite there. So, so go look at his stuff. Again, Len, thank you. Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for being on here. Sam, any final parting thoughts?
Yeah, if you like gore, go check out his presentation that he did at HOU.SEC.CON that we have posted too. So we'll put that in the keynote or in the show notes as well. But yeah, really cool stuff. Definitely pushes the boundaries of things that we typically talk about. So this is really interesting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you next year.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being on here. Go check out Len's stuff, and we will see you on episode 33 in the not too far future.